They are marketed as a miracle injection. Weight loss jabs seem to have become the popular answer to the UK's obesity crisis. But new research from ITV News can reveal that those very injections have suspected links to at least 18 deaths. So what happens when the jabs go wrong, and are there enough warnings in place? I'm Lucrezia Millarini, and this is What You Need to Know. Hello and welcome to today's episode of What You Need to Know, and I'm joined by our health correspondent, Rebecca Barry. Rebecca, welcome to the podcast. Listen, just talk us through what you've discovered about these drugs and how concerned should people be?
Well, in the UK, we have something called the Yellow Card Scheme, which allows medical professionals and members of the public to report any safety concerns that they have about drugs or medicines to the regulator, the MHRA. Now, it's important to point out, first of all, that any reported adverse reactions don't necessarily mean that the drug was to blame. It just means that there's a suspected link. So we dug into some of the data, and ITV News discovered that the UK's drug regulator, the MHRA, has been alerted to 18 deaths with suspected links to weight loss injections. The reports relate to deaths when the drugs semaglutide, liraglutide and tirzepatide were being used for weight management, and the reports were sent to the MHRA over the last 4 years. Now, 10 of those cases, the drugs were being used for weight loss only, and in 8 of those cases, the drugs were being used for weight loss alongside diabetes. Now, of course, all medicines carry a risk of potential side effects. It's really important to point that out, and weight loss drugs are no exception. The most common risk, for about 1 in 10 people, they experience things like diarrhoea and vomiting, but there are more rare but more serious side effects, things like pancreatitis and gallbladder problems. Experts say that for people who are using these medications for obesity and type 2 diabetes, the benefits outweigh the risks. But the problem is, when that's not the case, the balance tips the other way, and you have to be really aware of the potentially serious side effects.
Yeah, for sure. And you've been speaking to people, haven't you, about those very side effects. What have they been telling you?
Yeah, we met one woman called Lorna, who's 46, and she told us that after having children, she, like many people, struggled to lose weight, and she said it was really affecting her mental health. She'd seen on social media, as many of us do, lots of chat about these weight loss jabs. So she went to her doctor and asked if she could get them. She had a BMI of 28, so she didn't qualify for the weight loss jabs on the NHS. So
Too low?
Yeah, I think it has to be 30.
Okay.
But there's also a real long waiting list to get hold of these weight loss drugs on the NHS, and lots of people look elsewhere. She went to a registered online pharmacy and bought them. After 3 weeks, she'd lost a stone. She thought it was amazing. Suddenly, things took a real turn for the worse, though. She had crippling stomach pains. She developed pancreatitis, which I said before can in rare cases, be fatal. She had to have her gallbladder removed. She now lives with chronic bowel problems. And she told us that the most difficult part was not being able to care for her children and not being able to be a mum for them.
Yeah.
I just collapsed on the bathroom floor. It felt like I'd had a car crash inside. I couldn't walk. I was bedridden. I couldn't drive. I couldn't get down steps. I couldn't even hardly go to the toilet. Couldn't take my kids to school. People just think it's a miracle injection and you get skinny. I don't think people really are aware that it can cause long-term medical conditions.
Wow, Lorna bought hers from a registered online pharmacy. What about people who get their drugs off the black market, just the dodgy dealers online on social media? Yeah,
I mean, basically drug dealers, that's a real problem too. And of course, if you get medication from the black market, they haven't been through the rigorous sort of testing that the drugs we buy from pharmacies have been. So you really increase the risks. I met 24-year-old Paige from North Wales. She has polycystic ovary syndrome, a condition that can lead to weight gain, and she had really low self-esteem. She felt very conscious of her body. She didn't buy these weight loss jabs from a regulated pharmacy. She got it through a friend of a friend. She paid £80 for 4 of these syringes, and she got really unwell. She ended up in hospital. Here's what she told me.
I was thinking, I feel like I've injected some poison into my body. I don't know what's going on. I've got no energy. I need to lie down.
What were your worst fears?
I was actually going to die. Scariest thing I've ever been through in my life.
So Rebecca, when people, buy from this unregulated seller, how do they even know what they're taking, what they're putting into their bodies?
Well, in short, you can't be sure.
Yeah.
You don't know. I've actually got the package here that Paige received when she bought these. I mean, pink, shiny packaging. It no way looks like a serious medication with potentially serious side effects. I have to admit, actually, my young daughter saw this in my work bag at home and she was sort of drawn to it.
Yeah.
It looks shiny, it looks appealing. So we actually sent this off to a laboratory to get it tested to find out what was in these syringes which Paige injected into her stomach. They discovered that it does contain semaglutide. That is a weight loss drug, but it should only be sold by a regulated pharmacy, an authorised seller. And the doctor there, Dr. Chris Childs, told me that when you're producing these sorts of medications in like a DIY environment, they are not going to be prioritising patient safety. It's going to be about making profits and cutting costs. So you're not going to see this produced in like a sterile environment. There's the risk of pathogens and other contaminations. And he says, especially when you're injecting this, you bypass the body's natural defences. So it's going straight into your system and you can have an allergic reaction or other toxins. I spoke to the most senior doctor in NHS England, Professor Stephen Powis, and he told me that for people with obesity and type 2 diabetes, these drugs can be a really valuable intervention, but they're not for people who just want to shed a few pounds.
The important thing is that these are drugs. They are prescribed medications, and like all drugs, they have side effects, and therefore they should be only prescribed to those who clinicians are sure will get a benefit. They're not something you should take just to lose a few pounds in weight. If you want to look better and you're otherwise healthy, these should be targeted at people who will get the benefit.
What are the drugs companies saying about all this then?
Well, we contacted two of the leading UK suppliers of these drugs, and they told us that they act in accordance with global and UK regulatory requirements, and they stress that patients should only be taking these medications under the strict supervision of a healthcare professional.
Yeah, and do you know what is interesting as well, when we saw how Paige got her in this rather pretty envelope just through the letterbox, you're not getting that one-to-one assessment with a doctor, and that is so important, isn't it? Because it's not just the stuff you're putting in, but it is about what is actually physiologically wrong with you, physically. It's...
Totally. Professor Stephen Powis there said to me in that interview that these drugs, even when used in the right way, are not a miracle cure. They're not the holy grail. They're not a silver bullet for tackling obesity. And I think if anyone is really struggling with their weight and it is affecting their health, that's the key point, you should go to your GP. You should see if you are eligible for these weight loss drugs. As I said before, there are really long waiting lists on the NHS for them, and there's a real postcode lottery as to whether you can get them. But if you do choose to pay for them, do make sure you go to a regulated pharmacy, preferably one that does have that sort of follow-up service and guidance, and also some of them really help with your lifestyle changes as well, because we know that once you stop taking this medication, you could just put the weight back on.
And you can't take it forever, can you? There's a limited time to it. But also, if you're paying, 80 quid for 4 doses, if it's too good to be true.
Well, exactly.
It's too good to be true.
That's what the laboratory told us. That at that price, there's a reason why the drugs that we have in the UK regulated system cost quite a lot of money, because they go through rigorous clinical testing and quality control.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, it's fascinating, but incredibly worrying as well. Rebecca, thank you, and thank you everyone for watching, for listening. For more on this, head over to our website where you can watch Rebecca's investigation in full, and do have a look back through our other quick briefings on a range of headline topics to find out what you need to know. Until the next time, bye-bye.